My daughter brought a lawyer for dinner without warning. She said he was a friend. A week later, I received the interdiction papers. But my name is Eleanor Walker, I am 78 years old, and I live in San Miguel de Allende, a jewel in the heart of Mexico, where cobblestone streets echo with the sound of mariachis, and the evening sky blushes crimson above the Gothic spires of La Parroquia. It was a Tuesday night when my life tilted on its axis. The air was thick with the scent of roasted chiles drifting from my kitchen, and I had just set the table with my mother's old china, the blue porcelain that only came out for special occasions. But this wasn't meant to be one. Rebecca, my daughter, 50 years old, all sharp cheekbones and restless eyes, arrived exactly at 7. Her knock wasn't soft. It was the kind that chased silence out of the house. Behind her stood a man I had never seen before. Tall, neatly pressed navy suit, a smile that felt rehearsed. "Mother, this is Michael. Michael Carter. He's a friend." Friend. The word hung in the air, brittle as glass. I offered him my hand, the skin thin and veined, but steady. His grip was firm, yet his eyes weren't really on me. They were scanning the room, cataloging the photographs, the furniture, the very fabric of my life. "Pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Walker," he said, his voice polished, deliberate, the kind of voice that had stood in many courtrooms. I ladled soup into bowls, corn with poblano peppers, a recipe older than my daughter, and the steam fogged my glasses. Rebecca picked at her spoon without eating, while Michael's gaze traveled again and again to the photographs lined across the wall. My late husband in Acapulco, myself in a red dress at a community dance, Rebecca as a gap-toothed 8-year-old holding a paper kite. "Beautiful memories," he said. "Do you live alone, Mrs. Walker?" "I do. And quite well, Mr. Carter. My memory still keeps me company." Rebecca cleared her throat, her fingers tightening around her phone. "Mother, don't be defensive. Michael understands family matters." I stirred the soup slowly. Family matters or inheritance matters? Michael's phone buzzed on the table. He excused himself, walking down the hallway to answer. His footsteps echoed against the old tiles. Rebecca leaned closer, lowering her voice until it was a hiss. "We need to talk about the future, Mother." I took off my glasses, meeting her eyes, the same gray eyes that once clung to me when she was small. "The future? Or what you're afraid of losing?" Before she could answer, Michael returned, his smile zipped tight, his phone tucked away. His eyes no longer wandered. They focused directly on me, as if some silent decision had been made during that brief call. The rest of dinner passed in stilted conversation. I noticed the way Rebecca's hands trembled when she lifted her glass. I noticed the way Michael's questions circled around me, subtle but probing. When they left, the house exhaled, the walls sighing back into peace. But I knew the storm wasn't over. It had only just begun. That night, I went to my bedroom. My knees creaked like the floorboards, but my resolve was iron. In the bottom drawer of my dresser, hidden beneath scarves scented faintly of lavender, lay an envelope. On the front, my name, written in the bold hand of Anthony Bishop, my husband's old friend and lawyer in Houston, dead nearly a decade now. I slid out the paper within, a durable power of attorney, carefully written binding. My late husband had arranged it long ago, foreseeing, with his typical suspicion, the dangers of ambitious heirs. His note was still folded inside. So no one can take from you what is yours unless 2 doctors in 2 countries prove otherwise. I pressed the envelope against my chest, listening to the clock tick in the silence. The battle Rebecca thought she was staging hadn't even begun, and she didn't know that her mother was already armed. Because I decided then, standing in the hush of my bedroom, I would not simply be a guest at this dinner or a bystander in this scheme. I would be the host of my own destiny, and Michael Carter, this so-called friend, was about to learn that age does not mean surrender. When the door clicked shut behind Rebecca and her lawyer friend, silence poured back into the house. I sat for a long time at the table, staring at the bowls of soup gone cold, the candle still flickering weakly in its glass. The air carried their perfume, their voices lingering like ghosts in the corners. Finally I stood. The night pressed against the windows, and San Miguel's bells told the hour, slow, metallic reminders that time keeps moving, whether we want it to or not. I went to my bedroom. My bones ached, but my mind was alert, every nerve sparking. At the dresser, I pulled open the bottom drawer. It groaned in protest, like a throat reluctant to reveal secrets. Beneath folded scarves, some still faintly smelling of lavender sachets, was the envelope. It was aged, the paper yellowing at the corners, my name written in the bold handwriting of Anthony Bishop, my late husband's most trusted friend. Anthony had died almost 10 years ago, but his foresight lived on in these documents. I unfolded the letter first. The ink had faded, but the words were still strong. Eleanor, if you are reading this without Henry, it means my old friend has left you behind. You must protect yourself. I have drawn up the document we discussed, a durable power of attorney that requires confirmation from independent doctors, both here in Mexico and in the United States, before anyone can interfere with your estate. It is a shield, my dear. Use it. My throat tightened. Henry, my husband, had insisted on this. He had seen, even then, how Rebecca's ambition simmered beneath her skin, how she always measured life in assets, numbers, acquisitions. He had loved her, but he had not trusted her. Not fully. I placed the letter back and lifted the legal document. The language was dense, deliberate, like armor forged of words. I slid it into my purse. If Rebecca and Michael Carter thought they could outmaneuver me, they were in for a surprise. The next morning, I went to the market. The cobblestones glistened from a light rain, and the air smelled of tortillas frying on corner griddles. Vendors called out, their voices rising in song-like cadences. I carried my basket, nodding, smiling, but my mind was elsewhere, calculating, preparing. At the fruit stand, Diego, the young man who always helped carry my bags, noticed my silence. "Dona Eleanor, you look thoughtful today." "Problems?" I forced a smile. "Nothing a little courage and a good coffee won't fix, Diego." He chuckled, not pressing further. The boy had enough burdens of his own. That afternoon the phone rang. I recognized Michael's polished voice immediately. "Mrs. Walker, could we meet at my office on Friday? There are documents it might be helpful to review. Just routine, nothing alarming." "Documents?" I asked, my tone deliberately sharp. Yes. Standard protections. Please trust me." I laughed softly, the sound dry as parchment. Trust is an expensive fabric, Mr. Carter. We only wear it on special occasions. Friday will do. When I hung up, I picked up my cell phone and sent a message to Lucinda, my neighbor and closest friend. She was a retired journalist from New York, a woman with sharp eyes and sharper instincts. Lucy, meeting Rebecca's lawyer Friday. Need your eyes there. You still have your reporter's nose, right? She replied within minutes. Always. I'll come, and I'll bring questions, followed by the emoji of a magnifying glass. That evening, as the bells marked 6, I sat by the window, staring at the fading colors of the sky. Somewhere across town, perhaps Rebecca was rehearsing her plan, imagining how easily her mother could be cornered, declared unfit, and pushed aside. But she didn't know what I held in my purse. She didn't know the shield Henry and Anthony had left me. Friday was coming, and when I stepped into that lawyer's office, it would not be as prey. It would be as a wolf with her fangs hidden behind a grandmother's smile. Michael Carter's office smelled faintly of leather and polished wood, as if even the air had been trained to behave. The walls were painted a deep slate blue, the color of storm clouds gathering over the Sierra. Diplomas in dark frames stared down at me from every angle, while a massive window revealed the pink spires of the Parroquia glittering under the morning sun. Rebecca was already there. She sat upright in a cream blazer, her legs crossed with military precision, her nails freshly lacquered in a defiant crimson. She looked less like a daughter and more like a corporate strategist awaiting a merger. "Mother, you made it." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Michael rose, extending his hand as if the room itself were his courtroom. "Mrs. Walker, welcome. Please sit. May I offer you coffee? Tea?" "No, thank you," I replied, adjusting myself into the chair opposite his desk. The cushion swallowed me whole, but I held my posture like a general on parade. Michael opened a folder. Papers rustled with the cold precision of scalpels. "We've received some reports, Mrs. Walker, that you've been forgetful. Misplacing things. Repeating stories. These things happen with age, of course. Rebecca is concerned about your safety. We want only to protect you." "Reports," I echoed, turning slowly to my daughter. "From whom, Rebecca? The neighbors? Or just your imagination?" Her chin lifted. "It's not imagination, Mother. You've left the stove on twice this month. Diego mentioned you lost your keys at the market. It worries me." I felt the sting. Yes, the keys had slipped into the bottom of my basket. Yes, I had forgotten the stove once. But was that grounds to strip a woman of her life? Worry is one thing, my dear. Declaring me incompetent is another. Michael leaned forward, his voice smooth, almost fatherly. "No one is calling you incompetent. This is simply a protective guardianship. A safeguard. You wouldn't lose anything. Rebecca would simply help manage the more complex aspects of your estate." "Help," I repeated, savoring the word like poison on my tongue. I opened my purse deliberately, slowly enough for Rebecca's eyes to follow the motion, curiosity flashing there. I laid a thick envelope on the desk. "Funny you mention protection, Mr. Carter. My late husband thought of that too." Michael's brow furrowed. He reached for the envelope, but I pulled it back, letting the silence stretch. His office clock ticked like a metronome. "This is a durable power of attorney, drafted 10 years ago. It requires independent confirmation from doctors in both Mexico and the United States before any changes to my estate can be considered. Rebecca's eyes widened, her composure cracking for just an instant. You never told me about that. Because it wasn't meant for you, Rebecca. It was meant for me. To guard against wolves dressed as friends. Her mouth opened, then shut again. Michael cleared his throat, but the polish in his tone faltered. Mrs. Walker, these documents can be challenged in court. They are outdated. Outdated? I cut him off. Anthony Bishop drafted them, and his reputation in Houston is stronger than this desk you sit behind. Do you really want to test that in front of a judge? The silence thickened, filled only by the muffled sounds of traffic outside. Rebecca's hand trembled against her knee. Finally, she stood. We only want what's best for you, Mother. No, Rebecca, I said softly, my voice a blade wrapped in velvet. You want what's best for yourself, and you thought I was too frail to notice. Her cheeks flushed crimson, the same shade as her nails. Without another word, she grabbed her purse and marched toward the door. Michael followed, his mask of courtesy slipping into something harder, more calculating. Before leaving, he paused, his voice lowered just for me. Mrs. Walker, this isn't over. The door closed with a quiet thud. I sat alone in the storm-blue office, heart pounding, but not with fear, with something fiercer. Resolve. The battle lines were drawn, and for the first time in years, I felt alive, like the fire inside me had been rekindled. They thought I was weak. They thought I was prey. But predators sometimes misjudge the teeth of an old wolf, and I intended to show them mine. The streets of San Miguel seemed sharper when I walked back from Michael Carter's office. The cobblestones pressed against my shoes like tiny verdicts, the air thick with the smell of roasted corn drifting from a corner vendor. Tourists laughed nearby, oblivious, while I carried the weight of invisible chains. Chains my own daughter had tried to fasten around me. Inside my house, silence greeted me like an old friend. I set my purse on the table, drew out the envelope, and ran my fingers over its edges. My late husband's foresight had saved me for now, but I knew the look in Michael's eyes as he closed that office door. Calculation, the gleam of a man who never left a battlefield without a plan for return. That evening, Lucinda came by. She wore her usual wide-brimmed hat, her notebook tucked under her arm like a weapon. Her gray eyes narrowed as soon as I poured her a glass of wine. "Tell me everything," she demanded, clicking her pen. I relayed every word, every glance, every tremor in Rebecca's voice. Lucinda scribbled furiously, occasionally shaking her head. "Classic guardianship play," she muttered. "I've seen cases like this in New York. Children drag their parents into court, claim mental decline, and before you know it, the parent is stripped of every right. Do you know how many estates I covered like that? Too many. But I have the document," I reminded her, tapping the envelope. "It's a shield, yes, but they'll look for cracks. Judges can be persuaded, especially if Rebecca paints you as fragile, confused. That's why you need witnesses, Eleanor. People who see you as you are. People who will swear you're capable." I leaned back, the wine warm in my throat. And who will believe the words of an old woman when my daughter marches in with a lawyer and polished lies? Lucinda's eyes glittered. "Then we fight fire with fire. You have me. And Diego." and anyone else who's seen you sharper than a knife. We build our own case before they drag you into theirs. Her certainty steadied me, though a flicker of doubt still gnawed at my heart. The next morning, as I shopped for bread, whispers followed me. 2 women at the bakery glanced at me, then at each other, their voices dropping. I caught fragments. Forgetful daughter-worried papers. Rebecca's campaign had begun. She was sowing seeds, bending the ears of neighbors, shaping the narrative before I could speak for myself. When I returned home, a letter waited in my mailbox. The envelope was crisp, the handwriting clinical. Inside, a notice of a preliminary hearing scheduled in 2 weeks. Rebecca and Michael were moving faster than I imagined. My hands trembled as I held the paper. The words swam before my eyes. Petition for guardianship, assessment of capacity, hearing date set. I felt the room tilt, my breath catching. For a moment, I saw myself locked in some sterile nursing home, stripped of choice, of dignity, my house sold, my books boxed away. But then Henry's voice came back to me, steady as the night we signed those papers. Don't let anyone write your ending, Eleanor. You write it yourself. I folded the letter, slipped it into the same drawer as Anthony's document, and locked it. That afternoon, Diego stopped by to bring groceries. When I handed him the coins, he noticed my hands still shaking. Donna Eleanor, what happened? You look pale. I showed him the letter. His young brow furrowed, anger flashing there. This is wrong. You are not weak. I see you every day, strong, independent. I will tell them if they ask. His loyalty touched me, though I hated the thought of dragging him into my war. Still, Lucinda was right. I needed witnesses. Night fell heavy, the sky thick with stars. I sat by the window, listening to the distant strum of guitars. My mind wouldn't rest. What hurt most wasn't Michael's maneuvering or the threat of court. It was Rebecca, the girl I had once rocked to sleep, the girl who used to whisper secrets to me under the covers. How had she become this stranger who saw me as an obstacle, not a mother? I thought of her father. He would have been furious. But more than that, he would have been disappointed. Tears pricked my eyes, but I let them fall silently. They were not tears of defeat. They were the sharpening of grief into resolve. Because now it was no longer just about protecting my estate. It was about defending the last shred of respect a mother deserved from her child. And when the hearing came, I would not be the trembling old woman they expected. I would be a storm they hadn't prepared for. Because this fight wasn't about money anymore. It was about dignity. Mine. The wind howled outside, rattling the window panes. Somewhere in the city, Rebecca was sleeping soundly, convinced the game was already hers. But storms have a way of arriving in silence before they strike. And when I struck, it would not be with whispers. It would be with thunder. 2 weeks. That was all the court granted me. 14 days to prove I was not fading, not weak, not the shadow my daughter painted in whispers. Lucinda came the next morning with her journalist's notebook, a thermos of bitter coffee, and that look of determination that made fear step aside. First we build evidence, she said, tapping the notebook. Not memories, facts. Bills paid, schedules followed, decisions made. Judges want paper, not sentiment. We laid everything on the table, receipts, calendars, bank statements. Each page felt like a brick in a wall I was constructing around myself, not to hide, but to lean against. By noon, Diego appeared with groceries. When he saw the piles of documents, his brow furrowed. "Dona Eleanor, this is wrong. You're strong. If they ask me, I will tell them." Lucinda smiled, assessing him. "Then you'll be a witness. Stick to what you see, not what you feel. Can you do that?" Diego nodded, serious as a soldier. The first evaluation came quickly. Dr. Alvarez, my internist, ran tests, puzzles, memory questions. "What would you do if you found a stamped letter on the ground?" he asked. "Mail it," I said dryly. "Unless it belonged to my daughter, then I'd steam it open." His laughter echoed as he wrote. No sign of cognitive decline. The second evaluation required a flight to Houston. Dr. Lang, stern and direct, tested me harder. "Your daughter says she's worried." "Rebecca mistakes control for love," I answered. "She studied me a long time before writing in heavy strokes. Competent. Formidable." I returned home to find an anonymous letter slipped under my door. Inside was a photograph of me at the bakery, squinting at coins. The note read, confused, "At risk. Court must act quickly. Cowardice without a signature." Lucinda shook her head. "They're crafting a story. We counter with context." She collected statements. The baker, the church, even the electrician who fixed my stove. Each one swore I was capable. Still, the pressure built, a storm swelling on the horizon. Rebecca arrived days later, Michael lurking just behind the bougainvillea like a shadow. She sat at my table, hands pressed flat. "Mother, please. You're making this harder. We just want safety." "Safety for whom?" I asked. Then I laid down the evaluations, one from Mexico, one from the U.S. 2 doctors say I am capable. Continue, and it becomes attack, not protection. Her lips trembled. Michael scanned the reports with his mask of calm, but I saw the tension. Then I opened another folder, Lucinda's secret weapon. Wire transfers. Payments from my account to a non-existent consulting firm registered under Michael's name, with Rebecca listed as partner. Rebecca gasped. "What is this?" Michael's face hardened. "An ambush." "No," I said, my voice steady. "A correction." For the first time, Rebecca looked at him not as an ally, but as something colder. Her eyes shone with confusion, even fear. They left without slamming the door. Silence stretched thick as smoke. Lucinda turned off her recorder. "That'll rattle them, but they'll strike back." She was right, because that evening, a courier delivered a sealed envelope from the court. The hearing date had been moved earlier. Attached was an affidavit from my longtime physician, recently retired, stating I suffered episodes of confusion. At the bottom, under his signature, one chilling line. Submitted at the request of concerned family friend, Anthony Bishop. Anthony, dead for 10 years. I stared at the page until the words blurred. Either someone was forging ghosts, or my husband's old ally was never as dead as I believed. And in that moment I understood. The true storm hadn't even begun. I read the affidavit again, tracing the letters as though they might rearrange themselves into sense. Anthony Bishop, my husband's friend, dead for 10 years, yet here his name bled fresh ink across the page. "Impossible," I whispered. Lucinda paced the room, the paper trembling in her hands. Either someone forged it or, she stopped, her jaw tight, or someone is playing with your history. The betrayal in those lines ran deeper than Rebecca's schemes. Anthony had been Henry's confidant, his chess partner, the man who drafted the very safeguard that now protected me. If his name was being used, then the enemy had reached further back into my life than I'd ever feared. Who benefits? I asked. Lucinda answered without hesitation. Michael. He knows the name carries weight. He's building a mirage of authority. But forging the dead? That's reckless. Or desperate, I murmured. The following morning, I confronted Rebecca. She came reluctantly, eyes swollen from a night without sleep. When I laid the affidavit before her, she flinched. I didn't, her voice cracked. Mother, I didn't bring this. Michael said it was supplemental evidence. I never saw the signature. Her denial rang uncertain, but there was fear in her eyes. For a moment, I saw the little girl again, clutching my hand during storms. If you let him drag Anthony's ghost into this, Rebecca, I said, my voice steady, then you are complicit in burying your father's memory. Choose carefully. Tears welled, but she turned away. I wanted to protect you, she whispered. No, I corrected softly. You wanted to control me. That night, the house felt heavier than stone. I dreamt of Henry, standing by the window, shaking his head. Anthony would never sign against you. Find the truth, Eleanor. I woke before dawn, clarity burning in my chest. If Anthony's name had returned, then somewhere, through dusty files, through legal archives, there would be fingerprints, traces of the hand that forged it. Lucinda and I spent days digging. She called contacts in Houston, old lawyers, even a clerk she once interviewed decades ago. Finally, a whisper came back. A law office Michael once interned at, one that still had access to Anthony's sealed archives. He had help, Lucinda said grimly. Someone on the inside gave him Bishop's old templates. That's how he mimicked the style. It was brilliant and dangerous, but court was approaching fast. The streets buzzed with rumors now. Neighbors looked at me with pity, as if I were already half buried. Rebecca avoided my eyes at the market. Diego walked beside me like a guard dog, his shoulders squared, daring anyone to whisper within earshot. Lucinda prepared statements, witnesses, evidence. Yet at night, when the city fell into silence, doubt seeped in. Would a judge believe an old woman's word over the polished narrative of a daughter and a lawyer armed with a ghost? On the eve of the hearing, Rebecca appeared at my gate. Alone. Her face was pale, her hands unsteady. Mother, she said, her voice trembling, I can't stop it. Michael filed everything under my name. If I pull out now, I'll be accused of fraud. He says it will ruin me. I studied her, torn between fury and pity. Then tell the truth. Stand in court and say he forged the document. She shook her head violently. He says he'll show the transfers, the ones with my name. He'll destroy me. There it was, the trap. She had been his pawn, and now the bars had closed around her as well. You can still choose, I said. Not between ruin and safety, but between honor and shame. Which do you prefer to carry? Her silence was answer enough. She fled before I could speak again. That night, Lucinda found me sitting at the table with the affidavit before me, candles flickering. Do you think Anthony would forgive this? I asked. Lucinda's eyes softened. He'd tell you to fight, and to win. The bells tolled midnight. My heart steadied. Tomorrow the court would decide whether I was free or shackled. But one thing was certain. I would not walk into that room as prey. I would walk in carrying the truth like a blade. Because if they wanted ghosts, I was ready to show them the living still had teeth. The courthouse in San Miguel was not grand, but that morning it felt like a temple of judgment. The walls smelled of dust and polish, the corridor hummed with whispers. Lucinda walked at my side, notebook under her arm like a shield. Diego followed, stiff with determination. Rebecca waited across the hall with Michael. She looked hollow-eyed, mascara smudged, while he whispered instructions that bent her posture like wires. Inside, Judge Morales presided, stern, sharp, her pencil tapping against the file. Michael began, voice smooth as glass. Your Honor, Mrs. Walker faces episodes of confusion. For her protection, we request guardianship. He raised the photograph from the bakery. Then he slid the affidavit across the desk. Anthony Bishop. My chest tightened. Lucinda rose calmly. We contest capacity. 2 independent evaluations, Mexico and the U.S., both declare Mrs. Walker competent. We will also show motive, Mr. Carter's financial manipulation. The judge nodded. Proceed. Diego testified first. His voice trembled, then steadied. He described the bakery incident, the market detour, the stove sensor. Michael tried to shake him. You admire her, don't you? I respect her, Diego answered firmly. Dr. Alvarez confirmed my memory and judgment were intact. Then Dr. Lang's Houston evaluation was admitted, competent, capable, formidable. Michael leaned on the affidavit. Your Honor, this testimony comes with support from a respected colleague of the family, Anthony Bishop. Lucinda countered. The original bishop has been deceased a decade. Whispers rippled, and then the door opened. A tall man entered, silver-haired. I'm Anthony Bishop, Jr. I requested Dr. Menendez's affidavit at Mr. Carter's urging. I believed Mrs. Walker might be in danger. His gaze met mine, apologetic. I thought I was helping. Lucinda's pen froze. Did Mr. Carter provide you with letter templates from your father's files? The man hesitated. He wanted consistency. I didn't realize. The judge's eyes narrowed. We will examine authenticity. Lucinda then presented the wire transfers. Funds siphoned into a shell firm. Rebecca's name listed as partner. This is motive, she said. Rebecca blanched. I didn't know. Michael said it was consolidation. Rebecca, Michael hissed, his mask cracking. The judge rapped her pencil. Control your client, Mr. Carter. The air grew heavy. My heart ached, not with triumph, but with grief. My daughter looked lost, trapped between loyalty and shame. Then, as if fate had been waiting, the bailiff delivered a sealed envelope marked with Henry's signet. My late husband's hand, scrawled years ago, to be opened if guardianship is ever sought against you. The judge opened it carefully. Inside lay a letter and a brass key. She read aloud, If anyone seeks to strip you of agency, present this. The key belongs to a box holding records unknown to even our daughter. That box contains the true map of our estate. It will exonerate you, or bury those who come for you. Gasps stirred the room. Michael's face drained of color. Rebecca swayed as if the ground had tilted. Judge Morales set the key down with reverence. We recess until this box is produced. Court will reconvene then. Her gavel struck softly, but it echoed like thunder. Lucinda gripped my hand. We've turned the tide. I rose, steadier than I had been in years. The key burned in the judge's palm like a torch passed forward. Somewhere, in a vault I barely remembered, the truth waited, sharp enough to save me, or to cut forever. And I was ready to turn it. The morning after the hearing, the key felt heavier than brass. It warmed in my palm like a small heartbeat, Henry's or mine. Lucinda arrived with a canvas satchel and a plan that sounded like a courteous heist. No jewels, only truth. The letter names the bank by the Jardin, she said. We go early before Michael starts pulling levers. Diego insisted on walking with us. Vendors were still lifting tarps. The first tortillas scented the air. The bank's stone face recognized me the way old houses do. Inside, a manager with an olive tie examined Henry's signet and the key, then led us to the vault. Box 147. My hands shook. The lock yielded with a faithful click. Inside, a stack of folders bound with red string, a wax-sealed letter, a small pouch that rattled faintly. I broke the seal. Eleanor, Henry had written, "If this is open, someone has tried to make you smaller than you are. Don't let them." The folders hold ledgers and copies of transfers. The pouch holds a ring you lost in Acapulco and a drive with recordings of those I did not trust. If our daughter is misled, forgive when you can. If she misleads, protect yourself without apology. The pouch gave me the garnet ring, sunset captured in a circle, and a plain flash drive. The folders were meticulous, dates, amounts, names. One appeared again and again, Carter and Cole Advisory. Back at my table, sunlight drifted across paper continents. Lucinda opened the drive on her laptop. Files neatly labeled. Lunch with A.B. Jr., call from R.W. regrets, meeting, Carter proposal. Michael's voice poured out, smooth as varnish. Elder guardianship is a clean instrument when framed correctly. Emphasize love, safety, pepper details, stove keys. Judges are human. Then Rebecca, thinner, uncertain. I don't want to hurt her. I want order. It's messy when she says no. Michael. Then we make saying no impossible. The words landed like stones on a pond, ripples meeting the edges of the life I'd built. I let them hurt. Then I let them harden. We copied, logged, backed up. Diego listed witnesses. Lucinda drafted motions. To produce the box contents, appoint an independent auditor, sanction counsel for potential fraud. Each sentence was a blade wrapped in linen. Near evening, a knock, tentative. Rebecca stood on the step stripped of armor, eyes raw. "Mother, please." Lucinda moved to block. I touched her arm. Rebecca's gaze fell to the ring, the folders, the small drive. She blanched. "I didn't know about the shell companies," she whispered. "He said we were consolidating. He said the affidavit would carry weight. That bishop would make the judge listen." "You stepped on me," I said, not unkindly. "I know." Her voice shook. "He says if I back out, he'll flip the story. He has emails that make me look." "You gave him leverage," Lucinda said, cool. "He used it." Rebecca swallowed. "I want to make it right. I'll tell the court about the photo at the bakery. His assistant took it. About the calls. About everything. Tell the truth first, I said. Then we'll speak of forgiveness. Her hand found mine, small again, warm. For a moment, I felt the child under the strategist. Then another knock, brisk, certain. Michael walked in as if invited. I heard you accessed a box, he said, wearing that courtroom smile like a mask fitted with wire. How quaint! He saw the folders, the drive, the ring, and fear nicked the edge of his composure. Those are privileged, he said quickly. No, Lucinda answered, voice like winter. They belong to Mrs. Walker, and soon to the court. Michael's smile thinned to a blade. Be careful. Boxes hold surprises. Some explode. Then stand farther back, I said. You're closest to the fuse. He turned to Rebecca. We should talk. Alone. She shook her head. Small movement, tectonic shift. Something dark passed through his eyes. He adjusted his tie and retreated, already recalculating. When the door closed, Lucinda exhaled. He knows. He always did, I said. He just believed I'd be too tired to matter. We sealed copies, logged chain of custody, packed the box's contents like embers we intended to carry through night. The bell of the paroquia rolled across rooftops like a slow tide. Courage kept time with the clock. Later, alone, I reread Henry's letter. I slid the ring onto my finger. It fit as if it had been waiting for this exact hour. My phone lit. No sender, no greeting. Boxes aren't the only things that remember. Check the back garden. I rose. The night smelled of jasmine and warning. Tiles cool under my feet, bougainvillea whispering in the breeze. On the stone by the fountain, a black envelope. Inside, a single photograph. Me last night, sleeping in my chair, mouth slightly open, lamp haloing my hair. The intimacy of the image made the garden feel suddenly roofless. Under it, a neat hand had written, "See, confusion, frailty, perfect for court." I looked up. The leaves made a language of shadow. Somewhere beyond the wall, a shoe scuffed, then stilled. We had unlocked one box. Someone had unlocked another, mine. The storm, I understood, had learned to climb fences, and it was already inside my garden. The photograph made the garden feel roofless, as if the sky itself had been peeled back to watch me sleep. I held the image by its corners, careful not to smudge the proof that someone had stood where the jasmine climbs, breathing my air. Lucinda arrived within minutes. She read the note once and swore softly, the kind of word only New Yorkers make sound like prayer. Police report. Now, and motion for a protective order first thing in the morning. Diego checked the back wall with a flashlight, jaw clenched. Fresh scuff here, he called. Someone jumped down, not up. They were already inside. I tasted metal. Fear or resolve. We did all the sensible things. Changed locks, set motion lights, anchored a small camera above the bougainvillea. Sensible, however, is only a fence. Predators climb. At dawn we filed the report. The officer's pen moved steadily, untroubled by the intrusion of ghosts into gardens. We'll patrol, he said, but keep your lights on. Back home we prepared our ambush, the lawful kind. Lucinda drafted an emergency motion. Harassment, witness tampering, attempted evidence intimidation. Every word stitched to the others with a thread that could cut the hand that pulled it. Rebecca returned, paler than the morning. She stared at the photograph as if it might burn. "His assistant," she whispered. "Her name is Lila. She would do something like this if he asked." "Would you testify to that?" Lucinda asked. Rebecca lifted her chin, a small, brave movement. "Yes." By noon, Anthony Bishop Jr. called, contrition coiled in his voice. "I'm coming over. I can't fix what I did, but I can tell you what he asked me to do." He arrived in a linen jacket, carrying a folder that looked like a confession. He showed us emails, Michael's phrases circled in yellow. "Keep tone paternal, invoke concern, Bishop name carries trust." Then, a trail of payments from Carter and Cole to a boutique PR firm that managed whispers like investments. "I thought I was protecting a legacy," Anthony said, small under his father's name. "I helped weaponize one." Lucinda photographed every screen. "You'll submit a sworn declaration," she said. It wasn't a question. He nodded. "I owe you that." The afternoon sagged with heat. Cicadas stitched the hours together. We worked the list, witnesses, filings, copies stamped and sealed. Practical tasks are the scaffolding over panic. Still, the edges of the house felt thin, like parchment stretched too far. At dusk, the motion lights blinked, once, twice, then steadied. Diego stepped outside with the flashlight. I followed to the threshold. The bougainvillea shivered though the air was still. "Cats," I told myself. "Cats and nerves." The phone chimed. A new message. "Your daughter should sleep at her place tonight. Safety first." Unsigned, unsent by any contact, arriving like a whisper under a door. Rebecca read it, went colorless. "He knows I'm here." Lucinda's mouth thinned. "Then we take away his stage." She turned to Diego. "Can you sit out back? Not as a guard, just be present." He nodded. "I'll bring a book." He didn't. Night gathered its shawl. The house breathed. We left the office lights on, spread the folders across the table like a feast no thief could resist. Bait glints because it promises hunger an easy meal. Around midnight, the garden camera clicked, the soft, insectal sound of mechanical attention. Lucinda's phone pulsed. She lifted it, showed me the grainy image, a figure at the wall, pausing, listening. A hand tested the new lock on the side gate, found it firm, moved toward the bougainvillea's dark, leaf-lipped mouth. Diego's silhouette rose from the garden bench, slow and deliberate, a human fact entering a predator's story. The figure froze, then retreated. A soft curse drifted, the kind that tastes like old whiskey and expensive entitlement. We didn't sleep. We watched the camera's grayscale version of Patience until dawn light unspooled the shadows. No one returned. At 9, we walked to court with our box, our motions, our fear folded neat as handkerchiefs. On the steps, Michael waited, immaculate as ever, smile pinned like a medal. "Mrs. Walker," he said. "Ms. Kent. Rebecca." He gave my daughter a look that had once been coaxing and now was merely hungry. "Let's be civil today." Lucinda held his gaze. "We'll be accurate." Inside, the clerk announced the emergency motion. Judge Morales leaned back, the pencil balanced like a scale. Lucinda spoke first, laying the photograph, the messages, the bank proofs, the audio files upon the altar of procedure. Michael barely glanced. "Manufactured drama," he said lightly. "Family hysteria." The The court should focus on capacity. Judge Morales turned to him. I am focusing on integrity. She called on Anthony Jr. He rose, hands folded, voice steady. He admitted the emails, the consistency request, the pressure to lend a dead man's gravity to a living scheme. He did not spare himself. The judge's pencil scratched a private verdict across her pad. Finally, Rebecca stood. Her voice was quiet, not because it was weak, but because it remembered being strong. She told the court about the promises, the photographs, the threats folded into kindness. She confessed participation and regret, which do not cancel but do complicate. Michael's smile thinned to wire. Your Honor, this is a theatrical attempt to muddy the simple question of safety. Lucinda slid the flash drive evidence forward like a chess queen crossing an open board. Play file labeled meeting, Carter proposal. The courtroom speakers breathed to life. Michael's voice filled the wood. Guardianship is a clean instrument when framed correctly. Emphasize love, safety, pepper details, stove keys. Judges are human. Silence as tangible as fabric fell. Somewhere a throat clicked. Michael's face did not redden. He had trained past that reflex. He simply narrowed his eyes, a snake reconsidering the path to the mouse. Judge Morales exhaled. It sounded like a door closing. Here is the court's preliminary order. The petition for guardianship is stayed. An independent auditor is appointed to review all transfers. Counsel for the petitioner will respond to the harassment allegations by morning. The contents of Box 147 are admitted under seal, pending forensic review. Ms. Walker, she looked at me. You retain full agency. I did not cry. I felt the tears rise and sit obediently at the rim of my eyes like well-trained dogs. We stood. The room uncoiled. Michael gathered his papers with the precision of a man sweeping glass into a bag. He did not look at me. He did not look at Rebecca. Outside, the sky had taken on that clean blue that forgives nothing and hides everything. On the steps, Anthony touched my arm. I can help with the auditor, he said. I know someone no one owns. Thank you, I said. He had returned his father's name to something that could be carried without bowing the head. Back home, the house smelled of coffee and paper and the faint, iron-sweet scent of fear. Diego checked the camera, nothing more in the night. Lucinda filed copies and backups, her neat, battlefield order restoring the world's edges. My phone chimed again. No sender. No greeting. A photograph, this time not of me, but of the judge stepping into her car. The message beneath it. Judges are human. The room tilted. Lucinda swore again. Diego locked the door with a hand that shook and then stilled. Then we warn her. I said, the old wolf awake now, not for myself, but for the pack. I looked at Henry's ring, at the box key, at my daughter's face learning its new shape. The storm had teeth, so did we. And as the bells began to ring the hour, I understood that the final strike wouldn't be in my garden or his office, but somewhere neither of us felt safe. The message with the judge's photograph was the final warning. Judges are human. We reported it at once, and security took the threat seriously. Still, Lucinda was certain. The real danger is the evidence handoff. That's where Michael will move. At the bank, Judge Morales herself appeared, flanked by officers. The vault opened. Box 147 rested on the table. I unlocked it with Henry's key. Inside lay the folders, the flash drive, the garnet ring now back on my finger. Michael arrived late, smiling with polished menace. "I'm here for chain of custody." "Sit," the judge said sharply. Then another figure entered. Lila, Rebecca's suspicion made flesh. She placed her phone on the table, pressed play. Michael's voice instructing her to photograph me at night, to make me look frail. His voice again. "Guardianship is a clean instrument. Judges are human." The judge's face hardened. Lila swore an affidavit on the spot. Rebecca whispered through tears, "I'll testify too." Michael tried one last maneuver, offering a compromise. Limited guardianship, independent agent. The judge didn't even read it. "Mr. Carter, you will surrender your devices. Council sanctions will follow." He laughed, brittle, but his mask was broken. For the first time, he looked cornered. The next morning, court reconvened. Judge Morales read her ruling with rain still in her hair. The guardianship petition was dismissed with prejudice. An auditor would trace every transfer. Sanctions against Michael would be sent to the bar. And I, Eleanor Walker, retained full agency. Her gavel struck once. It didn't sound like victory. It sounded like release. Back home, the house seemed lighter. Lucinda organized her notes. Diego checked the cameras. Rebecca sat across from me, pale but present. "Mother," she said, "will you let me help, on your terms?" "Yes," I answered, "and I will ask when I need it." Her smile trembled, but it was real. I opened the window. The bougainvillea shed rain like jewels. The city outside hummed with ordinary life again, vendors calling, pigeons negotiating the square. I held my coffee and whispered, "My name is Eleanor Walker. I am 78. I live in San Miguel de Allende. My memory keeps me company. My friends stand at my shoulder. My daughter is learning to be my daughter again." On the table, where fear had piled its papers, only sunlight remained. And somewhere far off, thunder signed its name on another story.